Today in my kitchen, we will be making anti-inflammatory style salmon burgers, potato wedges, cassava buns, and a buffalo ranch dip. Starting off with our salmon burgers, I used wild-caught sockeye salmon. The full recipe for this will be listed down below in the description box. And I cut the salmon out of the packs, and I definitely had to take the skin off because I am going to mince this salmon and I can't really have the skin on it. However, I left a little tiny bit of skin because the benefits in the salmon skin are amazing. For inflammation, salmon is a wonderful anti-inflammatory friendly food because it is filled with omega-3 fatty acids, which is wonderful for reducing chronic inflammation. I then added some cassava flour and seasonings to the mix so that I could bind my mixture into burger patties. Once my patties were ready, I put them in the fridge so that they could firm up for about 30 minutes. I then added avocado oil, about 2 tablespoons, to a frying pan, and put the patties in so that they could cook. I cooked them on each side for about 4 to 5 minutes, no longer than 5 minutes. Being that this is salmon and salmon does not take long to cook, I did not flatten my patties when I flipped them neither. And then boom, within 10 minutes, I had salmon burgers. Moving on to my grain-free buns, I use cassava flour to make the dough mixture. I use this grain-free baking powder because I do have a corn intolerance, and regular baking powder with cornstarch just does not cut it for me. If you're interested, I will have it linked down below. I then added some seasonings and spices to the mix, along with some eggs, and I did begin to mix this up and form it into a dough ball. Once my dough ball was formed, I began to cut it into equal parts. Now, you could actually get about 4 pieces of bread out of it, but I really like a thick breaded bun, so I only did 2 with the ingredients that will be listed down in the description box. To my baking pan, I added a little avocado oil because I didn't have parchment paper, and placed my buns on it, nice and secure. I then gave the top of them a nice egg wash. The reason I decided to make my own bread was because sometimes on an anti-inflammatory diet, it is challenging to find breads that actually taste good, but are also anti-inflammatory friendly. I then added the bread to my oven and baked it for about 18 minutes. Now this part is crucial. When you are baking, you really want to stay close by your oven and keep your eye on it. I check it after about 15 minutes, and if it was not ready, I let it brown for about 3 extra minutes more. And voila, they were done. I sprayed the top of them with a little avocado oil because I did not have any of my homemade anti-inflammatory butter on hand. I then let them cool for at least 10 minutes before cutting into them. So while they're cooling, let's make these wedges. To a bowl, I put some russet potatoes because I find that those are the best when making wedges. To some water and some vinegar. I then cleaned the skin off as well as I possibly could. I then dried my potatoes before slicing them into wedge shapes. Now, when you're cutting your potatoes, you really want to be careful while doing this, okay? And we over here trying to eat more healthy. We don't need no accidents happening in the kitchen. I then cut my potato very carefully into wedge shapes that were to my liking. Potatoes have really been a staple for me on this anti-inflammatory journey. What is your go-to food on this anti-inflammatory journey? Let me know down below in the comments. I then prepared an ice bath and added my cut wedges to said bath for at least 20 to 25 minutes. After that bath, I dried them again very well because one thing about potatoes, when they get wet, in order for them to cook nice and crisp, they need to be dry. Once they were dried, I added some arrowroot powder or flour to the mix because, like I said, I do not use cornstarch because I have a corn intolerance. In other words, my body does not tolerate corn. One thing about being on this journey is that what works for some may not work for others. So it is most important when you are eating foods to listen to your body. Pay attention to how your body feels after you eat said foods. For me, this is what this journey is all about. Figuring out what works well with my body and what doesn't. This helps me be intentional as well as connected and in tune with my body. Because your body is always talking to you. The question is, are you listening? So here we are cutting our bread open, and look at that, voila. Nice soft cassava bread. And the herbs definitely made it flavorful. Now, the recipe for this ranch sauce that I made will also be in the description box. I added some buffalo sauce to the ranch, mixed it up nice and well, and voila, I had buffalo ranch sauce. The full recipe will be linked in the description below, and I will see you on the next one for more recipes, clips, tips, and anti-inflammatory finds. Thanks for watching.